It's time for the Retro Time Machine, where we discuss all things retro. Now let's welcome our host, Jay Jennings. That was interesting. Hi everybody, and welcome to the Retro Time Machine. I am indeed your host, Jay Jennings, where we talk about all things retro, and we even chat with retro stars. And today is one of those days. We are going to be discussing one of the greatest 70s kid shows of all time, or even not even the 70s, I think of all time, one of my favorite shows, Shazam, Zam. And my guest will be none other than the star of Shazam, Michael Gray, who played Billy Batson. He's in our green room right now having hors d'oeuvres and champagne. We'll bring him on shortly. But I wanted to first give a little background on the show because this is our tribute to Shazam. Filmation is the studio that made it. Producers Lou Scheimer and Norm Prescott licensed the show. They licensed the animated version of it. They got the rights to Captain Marvel, but because of legalities, they couldn't call it Captain Marvel, so they can only call it Shazam, but they could mention Captain Marvel's name on the show. They took that idea to CBS head Fred Silverman, but he said, no, I don't want to do a cartoon, let's make it live action. And due to its, I guess, budget constraints, they basically just built the show around two characters, Billy Batson and his mentor, and I guess they said, let's put them in an RV and have them drive around the country. All the episodes, in essence, were morality plays, either about prejudice or peer pressure, drug abuse, stealing or lying or cheating were always big topics on the show, or even handicapped people. And in the end, it would end up teaching young people lessons in life. And hence the moral tags at the end, where either Billy or Captain Marvel would come on and do like a 1 or 2 minute moral ending and tell you that, it's okay to tell someone that you're afraid or you're scared, or, don't always run with the wrong crowd. So our guest today, Michael Gray, was cast first, and then veteran actor Les Tremayne as mentor was cast second, and finally Jackson Bostwick as Captain Marvel. There were 15 episodes in the first season. The season 1 was shot very quickly, very cheaply, around the Sepulveda Basin and near the Paramount Ranch, which is in Southern California, in 2 months, from June and July of '74. So that whole first season was shot in 2 months. They would shoot about 2 episodes a week. And outside of Captain Marvel flying around on wires or Billy talking to the elders, which was all shot on a soundstage, everything else was done on location. And from what I hear, Michael could tell us later, that the pay wasn't so great. I think it was $300 per cast member the first year, and I think it went up to maybe $400 the second year. The second season introduced the Shazam ISIS Hour in '75, where the character of Isis, played by Joanne Cameron, and sometimes each character would cross over into the other person's show. So they'd have crossover episodes. There were 7 episodes for that season, and that was shot from June to July of '75. So they shot those episodes really quickly. I'm going to ask Michael if they shot any episodes in a day or 2. Anyway, after that, season 2, Jackson Bostwick, who played Captain Marvel, was replaced by John Davey as Captain Marvel, which throughout the years has its share of controversy. We might touch on that for a minute. Oddly enough, I was reading, and through my background on the show, it didn't really affect the ratings or the fan base. The fans of the show really didn't mind. They just assumed it was, maybe the same person, or they just liked John Davey, and they accepted him in the role. In '76, the Shazam ISIS Hour was renewed for a 3rd season, 6 episodes this time, with reruns of the show airing on CBS from January to August of 1980. And then finally, after so many years of not being seen on TV, well, occasionally it was. I think Nickelodeon ran it for a little bit. Warner Archives finally released the show, the complete series, Shazam, on DVD in 2012. So anyway, with that all said, I'm going to look up and say, "O elders, fleet and strong and wise, make Michael Gray appear before my seeking eyes." There he is, Shazam!
Shazam!
Hey, Michael, how are you?
Good, Jay. How are you?
I'm doing good. Are you ready to step into the retro time machine?
I am.
We're here to celebrate Shazam and everything it stood for. It was educational. It was entertaining. It had a moral compass about it. And I'm going to ask you questions about Shazam, of course. But I think I'm going to start off asking you about your career and life before Shazam. It wasn't just you were born and then you were on Shazam. You actually had a life before that. You were a teen idol. You were on some major TV shows, and I think we should talk about that. But first, let's get to where you were born. You were born in Chicago in 1951, not to give away your age. You still look like Billy Batson from Shazam anyway. But then you moved to Miami Beach, Florida, when you were a little boy. What were you into in those early days? Were you cartoons, sports, goofing around?
Well, my career sort of started in Miami Beach. It was very strange. One day I was out with my friends, I don't know, doing some sporting event, whatever it was, just hanging out. And some lady saw me, and she walked up to my friends after I left and said, "Who was that guy?" And they said, "Michael Gray." And she said, "Do you have his phone number and his parents' name? I'm an agent. I want to talk to the parents." So back then in those days, there were two shows being shot in Miami Beach. One was Gentle Ben, the other was Flipper. So there were quite a few talent agents down there and two production companies doing both those shows. So my father got a phone call one night, and this woman said, "My name is so-and-so," I forgot her name. She said, "I'm interested in having your son as a client. He looks like he could be an actor. I like the way he looks. I like his image. Would you ask him if he'd like to be an actor? I'd like to sign him up and maybe get him in Gentle Ben or Flipper." So my dad said, "I'll ask him." So that night at dinner, my dad said, "Would you like to be an actor?" I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Do you want to be an actor? I had an agent call me today." I said, "No, doesn't interest me." Then I started thinking about it, and at that point in my age, I was a teenager. I had no plans on what I was going to do as I got older, or what I was going to, major in college, or what I wanted to do with my future. So I thought, maybe I'll try this. So I went to my drama teacher at my junior high school, and I asked him what he thought about me being an actor. And he said, "You have the look. Why don't you take my class and let's see how good you are?" So I took his drama class at my junior high school. He liked me, and he said, "You could become an actor." I said, "Cool." So I said, "What else should I do?" He said, "Get involved in community theater, first of all." So I did. I auditioned for two plays in Miami Beach the same day. One was opening in about 4 days. The other was opening in 4 days as well. One was a matinee, one was an evening show, and I got both shows. So about 4 or 5 days later, I ended up doing both shows, one in the morning, and then my mother drove me the other one at night, and I liked it. I liked it a lot. So I asked my drama teacher and the agent, what's the best way for me to get an education as an actor besides junior high school drama? And they both said, there's two schools in the United States that teach acting. One is the American Academy of Dramatic Arts in New York, and the other is Pasadena Playhouse College of Theater Arts in California. They said, go to either one of them, and you'll learn all about the business. New York is more about legitimate theater, and California is more about TV and motion pictures. I said, okay. So I picked Pasadena Playhouse. My parents flew me out. I went in, I auditioned, I got accepted. It was a 3-year college. They taught me everything about acting, from fencing to dancing to dialogue, you name it, everything, makeup, everything. They taught everything. And I had a couple of classmates that went on to be successful. One was Sally Struthers, who went on to do All in the Family, and Keone Young, who went on to do a lot of work as well. So that's how I started learning about acting. Even my fencing teacher was a guy named Joseph Vince, who was in his 80s when he taught me how to fence. He taught Errol Flynn how to fence back at MGM, way back in like the 40s. So I loved it all. Now, my last year, I did a play called Life with Father with Leon Ames, Lorene Tuttle, and Ben Murphy. And there was an agent in the audience. And she said, came down to my dressing room after the show, and she said, "Are you serious about this? Would you like to be a professional actor? Because I'd like to sign you. I like what you just did in that play." I said, "I am." So I signed with her, and literally everything she went for, there it is: Leanne Ames, Lorene Tuttle, Ben Murphy, and
There you are on the right.
yep, that's me on the right. Yep, I loved it. That was fun.
So that was your first professional play then?
Yeah, I did a lot of plays at the Playhouse, but this was the first professional play with celebrities. And they were true legends, Lorene and Leon. And of course, Ben became a legend too for a while afterwards.
Oh, sure.
Yes.
So after this, and I guess we'll get to talking about how you were guest starring. Were you like 18 or 19? Yeah, 1969. You're about 18.
Yeah.
And you were guest starring. You started like your role on one show after another, but it began on the pilot for Room 22. You were in Lloyd Haynes's class.
That's right.
So tell us how your first experience on that show was.
Well, that was interesting. To begin with, every interview I went out on, I got, including the pilot for Room 222. And I thought, this is easy. What an easy business. I'm scoring at everything. So I signed a contract with 20th Century Fox, shot the pilot, and about 3 days later, I got a phone call from my agent saying, "You're not in the show anymore." I said, "Why?" And they said, "We heard two reasons. We're not sure why. One reason was you didn't fit the character. The other reason was nepotism." I said, "What does nepotism mean?" They said, "Well, again, we don't know what really happened, but we heard there's a possibility that one of the executive producer's friends wanted their son to play the part you had in the pilot, and they gave it to him." So I said, "Okay." So I didn't know this is like, why? I didn't know what was going on. So I still don't know to this day if it was the character wasn't right for me or if it was nepotism.
Right.
So I was out of the pilot.
Oh, that's terrible. But at least it was a learning experience. You were on a set and with lights and other actors and learning your cues and marks. But it didn't end there. I mean, they were just starting to pick up. You, I guess you did appearances on other popular shows. You were on The Flying Nun with Sally Field. Tell us a little bit about that.
That was fun. I got to sing with Sally Fields. My character's name was Young Man. And I played a hippie, basically. There's a picture I post every once in a while of me giving the peace sign, wearing all these colorful, outrageous clothes from the 60s. So I got to do a show with her. It was great. Then I got to do a couple episodes of Marcus Welby. I got to work with Robert Young and James Brolin. That was fun as well. Then I did a couple of movies after that.
Well, let's show Marcus Welby in case people forget. Robert Young played a doctor.
Yes, he did. Yep.
And did you interact with him in this episode?
I did. My character was a taxi driver, and I got to work with Robert and James Brolin in the same scene. That was pretty cool. Working with Robert Young was amazing. Talk about a legend.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
So then after that, you were in a couple of movies, a couple of cult films. You can tell exactly what part you were in, but I think the first one was Myra Breckenridge.
Yeah, I got to do a scene with Mae West. That was amazing.
Wow.
I had a very small part. Tom Selleck and I both had small parts in that. His career went on much bigger than mine, obviously.
Oh, that's debatable.
Yeah, but what happened was Mae West played an agent, and she was auditioning young men to be her clients. So she walked down this long hallway with a bunch of young actors, or young studs, as it were, and she picked Tom Selleck. But that was my scene. I got to meet Mae West. No lines.
Oh, that's awesome. No, it's a definite classic. And then after that, you went from one cult film to another. Did you have a scene in Beyond the Valley of the Dolls?
I did. I had a scene. I'm blanking on her name. Anyway,
Cynthia Myers?
No, it was
Dolly Reed?
No.
Anyway, there's all the girls from the band.
This was the director's girlfriend. I can't remember her name.
Oh, that's right. Okay, Russ Meyer is the director.
Russ Meyer was the director. It was his girlfriend, or maybe his wife. I don't remember. But there was a scene. We shot it in Malibu.
It's a crazy movie.
It was crazy. There's a scene where she gets upset and she walks down the stairs in Malibu to the beach. She's walking down the street, down the beach, and she picks me up. We go up the stairs, back to the house. She's in a bikini. I'm in a bathing suit. We start talking. She kisses me. And we walk off and left this rest to your imagination. So that was my scene in the Beyond the Valley of the Dolls.
Have you watched the movie, the whole thing?
I did, yes.
It's nuts.
Yeah.
It's like, well, you know, Russ Meyer makes these crazy movies with women who are well endowed, and
that's right.
And there's some great rock and roll music in it, and there's a character called the Z-Man in it, who's a crazy guy, yes. And there's this big kind of party in it. It's one of the craziest party scenes. Were you able to see that, or you weren't on the set for that?
I wasn't on the set for that, but I saw it when I watched the movie.
Right, that was a crazy scene.
Yeah.
But so you were in a couple cult movies, and in 1970 you had, I guess, the honor of playing Burt Reynolds' younger brother in a very poignant TV movie that affected Native Americans called Run, Simon, Run. Tell us about that.
That was cool. That was an Aaron Spelling production, and I was cast as Burt's brother. Just a couple of lines, a small scene, but that movie pretty much, pardon me, started my career in a very awkward, weird way. Kids that saw the movie, it was an ABC movie of the week. Kids that saw the movie started writing and calling Tiger Beat magazine and saying, "Who is Michael Gray? We just saw him playing Burt Reynolds' brother in a movie of the week, Run, Simon, Run." So Tiger Beat magazine responded and said, "We don't know, but we'll call him in and do an interview with him." So my agent called me and said, "Charles Loffer, the owner of Tiger Beat and the publisher, wants you to come in and do an interview and a photo shoot." So I went in, sat down with Chuck. We did an interview, did a photo shoot, very small picture. Oh, there it is, Bert and I, yeah. It was great. So they ran the picture, they ran the article. Kids started writing in more and calling in. "We like Michael Gray, can you do more?" So the pictures got bigger. They had me come in again, another photo session, more interviews. So next thing I know, I'm all over the place in Tiger Beat magazine. I was becoming a teenage idol out of left field.
Right. I was going to talk to you about that.
Yeah.
This movie basically did it. It was almost like it had this weird effect on, I'm thinking perhaps mostly of the female audience, but they wanted to know who you were, who was this good-looking kid next to Burt, who himself was the #1 kind of actor in the world too. So you had the Burt and you, the young gun, together, and it kind of did something with the audience, because those ABC movies of the week or Tuesday night movies were very popular. They had big audiences, and so they took a liking to you, and they wanted to know who you were. And you're right, Tiger Beat just said, "Okay, they go inundated with phone calls." And I don't know if that would happen today in these days. It'd probably go through 10 different people. But back then, I guess Chuck Lofner, who ran it, said, "Get in here." And he was also your manager too, wasn't he?
Yes, he was. Yeah, he managed me. Yeah, he signed me up.
So he basically took you and said, he saw, I guess there was, I guess David Cassidy and the Partridge Family and the Osmonds. So, I mean, they saw this in you as well. Let's do something with this kid.
Yes, and it was interesting. It was fun, but sometimes it wasn't fun. I went with Chuck and a bunch of other people from Tiger Beat to the Forum to see an Osmond concert. So we're walking down the aisle to get into our seats.
This is a famous story, by the way.
Yeah, we're walking down the aisle. I was like fifth row center. And as I almost got to my seat, I heard people say, "There's Michael Gray." So I looked around. Next thing I know, people running towards me. They started pulling my hair, tearing out my clothes.
Like A Hard Day's Night.
Exactly. So security guards picked me up, threw me into a broom closet, and I spent the whole concert in a broom closet. This is my beginning of that. Oh my gosh, this is interesting. Then there were times I couldn't even leave my apartment building because people would come downstairs and hang out in the driveway. They found out where I lived. I couldn't leave the building. Sometimes there were 20, 30 people standing out in the driveway waiting for me to come downstairs. So it was fun being a teen idol, but it was a little difficult for a while.
Definitely you were a teen idol. And 71, I think, was a very crazy year for you. You were on almost weekly on either Tiger Beat or 16 or Teen. And with these kind of photos, I mean, it's kind of, they're the same kind of photos, but different poses with you saying, "Hey girls, what's my secret word?" Or Michael wants to date you, what would you whisper into his ear, kind of thing. I guess that's, as I said, I think most of these magazines were for the teenage girls, but guys too, I think, liked it, and there was a fashion about it. So, one magazine after another. So instead of just being called in once in a while, how often were you called into these teen mags for a shoot?
Quite often, especially Tiger Beat. But as the career started getting bigger, other magazines started publishing more. Even Germany, Bravo magazine in Germany, when I was doing The Little People and Shazam, they were running pictures of me, and they had a contest for their readers. Vote who you think is the best actor on TV. And I won the Bravo TV Award in 1974 and 1975 for doing Shazam as the best actor of the year on TV, just from Bravo magazine.
And I think this was from your first shoot after you did Run, Simon, Run, if I'm not mistaken.
I think it was, yeah. They did a lot of stuff like that. Does Michael like girls with short hair or long hair? Does Michael like girls?
Where would he take you on a first date?
Exactly, yeah.
I have one more I want to show you. I found this collage. This is someone who is a huge fan. They will go unnamed, but check this out. How about that?
Oh wow, yeah, look at that.
This is someone who was a big fan. Oh, it's me. It's my collection.
Bunch of pictures. Wow.
Right. They just glued it. This is what they did. They would cut and paste.
Yep.
And put it on, girls would put it on their notebooks, their school books. So when they'd open it up, there's Michael, staring at them. So maybe they behaved in school so they could go out on a date with you.
Interesting. I'm still friends with Ann Moses, who was the editor. She and I just hooked up recently, and we're still friends. She was the editor of Tiger Beat back then, so it was great hooking up with her again.
So let's move on to another great year for you, which was 1972. You got a role on The Little People, which was later called the Brian Keith Show. Now, Brian Keith had just finished shooting Family Affair, which was hugely popular. And you played a student doctor on the show. I'm just trying to find a shot of the show. Here it is. And was that shot in Hawaii or was that in the studio?
It was shot in Hawaii, on Oahu, Honolulu.
Wow.
Yeah.
So tell us how you enjoyed your first season.
Well, it was amazing. First of all, I'm shooting a TV series in Hawaii, like living in paradise for 6 months. Back then you shot 26 episodes a year, then you reran them for another 26, 52 weeks. So to be working with Brian Keith and Shelley Fabre, who I had a crush on when I was younger.
Who didn't, right?
Exactly. Was amazing. So what happened, I went in and auditioned at Warner Brothers with a director, producer, executive producer, representatives from NBC. And they gave me the part. I flew to Hawaii, started shooting the show. And now the teen magazines were getting bigger and bigger, and I was on the front cover of them.
This is your character.
Yeah, that was a shot on the set. Yep.
You were Ronnie Collins.
Exactly. Yeah. So what happened basically, the ratings of the show, because the teen magazines were so high, we were #1 in our time slot. We were beating everything around us. So this was fantastic. And one day a kid came on the set. I don't know who he was, but he walked on the set and he had a magazine, and the front of the magazine, the front page, was a big picture of me. It said, Michael Gray, star of The Little People. I wasn't the star of The Little People. Pardon me. Popularity-wise, maybe I was because of the magazines. So, okay, whatever. I wasn't the star, but that's okay. So we finished shooting the first season. I flew back to California.
But before we say that, your fame did skyrocket even more than the Run Simon Run appearance. You were still on the cover of every mag. It's safe to say from like 71 to 74 were like those were your, I guess, breadwinner years where you couldn't turn a page of a teen mag without seeing you. That's
right. I was all over the place. It was amazing. You go to walk into a supermarket and go over where the papers, newspapers and magazines were. I was everywhere. It's crazy.
So I was going to just lead into the second season was going to start. They changed the title to the Brian Keith Show for some odd reason.
Yeah.
And but you weren't invited back, and I know you don't know you weren't told exactly, but you heard the rumors of why you weren't invited back. What were they?
Yeah, this was similar to Room 222. There were two rumors. When I got back from the first season, I was having dinner in a restaurant in Beverly Hills, and my manager happened to be there, walked up to me and said, Michael, I got bad news for you. I said, what? He said, you're not in The Little People anymore. I said, why? He said, I heard two reasons, and I'm not sure. I'm not sure which is true. One, they decided to write out your character because it wasn't doing that well. And the other one was that Brian Keith didn't like the fact that they said you were the star of the show when you weren't the star of the show. So he decided to have you written out, and they changed the name to The Brian Keith Show. So I didn't know what the true story was, to be honest with you. And I contacted Brian about 2 weeks later. He said, I had nothing to do with it. He said, I liked you, and I'm sorry you're out of the show. So whatever the case may be, I don't know. I wasn't in the show for the second season. It only lasted one more season, and the ratings dropped, so the show was canceled.
Yeah, I think it was a different audience. Maybe they were expecting Family Affair, but for adults, and I don't think that probably transpired. And after that, actually, you made an appearance on a legendary show.
Yes.
You were yes, and you were on Dick Clark's American Bandstand. Now, how did that come about?
Actually, I did the Brady Bunch. That's what you're talking about.
Well, we'll get to that in a second.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
The thing with Dick Clark, IMDb said I was on Dick Clark American Bandstand. I really wasn't.
What?
What the show was called Pop, and it was a variety show starring Davy Jones. Davy Jones was the host, and I did an episode where I came on and hung out with Davy the entire show, and I sang
playing yourself,
songs, being myself. I sang a couple of songs that I had recorded because we were planning on recording songs back then and doing concerts. But it was the same production company that did American Bandstand, so that's why it came out on IMDb that I did American Bandstand. It was actually called Pop. That's when Davy Jones and I became friends.
Well, I'm going to fire my researcher, but no, I'm just kidding. I actually thought, because everybody, for a second, because of your teen mags, I just assumed. You can't believe everything on IMDb, can you?
You cannot.
Okay, well, anyway.
IMDb says I only did 5 episodes of The Little People, and I did 26.
Right.
So that's wrong, too.
That's why I have you on to clarify this stuff. So let me get Dick out of the way here.
I did back in the 70s. I was doing auto shows when Shazam was on before the Comic-Cons.
Right.
And I got to do one with Dick Clark. We sat next to each other at a show. I think it was up in Portland, Oregon. He's a great guy. So I did appear with Dick Clark, but at an auto show.
Okay. So you did work with him in some capacity.
I did, yes.
Okay. So let's talk about still those good years, 72 to 74. You continue to work pretty steadily. In 72, you played Brian in another TV movie, Bobby Joe and the Good Time Band. It was a TV movie. Tell us about that experience.
That was a lot of fun. That was actually Danny Thomas's son was one of the executive producers, Tony Thomas, who did that. It was an amazing cast. It was about a rock group. Forrest Tucker was our manager. Ed Begley Jr. was in it, Robert Walden, Susan Hubley. It was just a great cast. It was a lot of fun. Unfortunately, it never made it past pilot, but it was a lot of fun shooting it. Yeah.
I thought Bobby Joe and the Outlaw, wasn't that a kind of a sequel, or is that a different movie?
This is Bobby Joe and the Big Apple Good Time Band.
Right. I guess it's two different movies using the name Bobby Joe.
Yes, it was. But they expected us to make it into a TV series. Unfortunately, it didn't happen.
Oh, okay. Well, that happens sometimes.
Yes, it does.
After that, I don't have any photos from it. From my diehard research team couldn't find any, but you appeared in the NBC Children's Theater. What did you do on that? Again,
that was a mistake at IMDb.
Man.
I never did anything at Children's Theater.
Let me get rid of these cards.
Yeah, I don't know where they came up with that, but I did.
Damn IMDb. Okay, let's move on. Okay, so you weren't on that. Let's get to what I think people do remember. A lot of teen stars or teen heartthrobs were on the Brady Bunch.
Yes.
Bobby Sherman, Davy Jones, and of course, Michael Gray. And yours is legendary. It involves Marcia and whipped cream.
Yep.
So tell us about that. You played her boyfriend, right?
I played Jeff, her boyfriend. Yep. And she was working at the ice cream parlor, and I came in the ice cream parlor with another date. And I was cheating on her. She didn't like that. So she came over to the table and
Shook up the can.
asked what we wanted to eat. We both ordered hot fudge sundaes, and she said, "You want some whipped cream?" And she squirted the whipped cream. Sure. So she squirted me and the date with whipped cream. And it was called Marcia Gets Creamed. That was the episode.
Wow, I don't know if you could get away with that today, but
no.
But then, yeah. So why do you think they wrote that? Because I remember that episode because I was a huge fan of the Brady Bunch. Why do you think they had you openly just go there and cheat to show you what a a-hole you were, or why?
Good question. I don't know, but they wanted me in that show, and they had me come in. I didn't even audition. They just called up and said, "Michael, are you available to an episode of Brady Bunch?" I said,
"When you're on
sure."
the cover of every teen mag, you don't audition.
Right, exactly right. You don't have to audition. That's right.
So they never told you. They just, you know what? It more was about your appearance, maybe, and ratings too, the actual plot.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah.
If you think about it, because I never understood why you openly cheated on her. I wouldn't cheat on Marcia.
No, I shouldn't have.
Right.
She was beautiful, and she was very nice.
So we did talk about earlier, we talked about that crazy scene. Things got so out of hand when you were at an Osmond Brothers concert at the LA Forum, and you got to see them. And then there's Michael Gray, and they chased you all over the place. Let me ask you a question. I'm sure that wasn't the only time that happened. I'm sure when you were seen at a drugstore or maybe at a restaurant, there's Michael Gray, and the girls would see you. Was that a hindrance, or did you kind of enjoy it?
Both. It was a hindrance, and I enjoyed it. But there was also a time I was in Vegas, way back in the 70s, and the Osmonds were performing at a hotel. I forgot what hotel it was, but I was walking through the lobby of the hotel and then through the casino, and a bunch of kids saw me and said, "Oh, there's Michael Gray," and started chasing me. So I ran out the door, through a hallway, and into a showroom. I had no idea the Osmonds were on stage in the showroom, so I disrupted the show again. So, with a bunch of kids chasing me through the showroom, and they were trying to perform another show. So twice I messed up their show. I feel bad about it.
Did you ever meet them or Donnie?
I didn't. No, never did.
Okay.
No.
In '73, it was still a great, those are the great years pre-Shazam. You did voiceovers. You did for the cartoon Goober and the Ghost Chasers.
I did, yes.
And then in '74, you made a film with a top-tier director, Peter Hyam.
Yeah.
And Pamela Sue Martin. You made, what was it called again? Oh, Our Time.
Yeah, yeah.
So what was it like being on a major set?
It was fun. Back then, the old major set, they were beautiful. It was like old school days, classic major set. I loved them. And it was great working with Peter Hyams. Parker Stevenson was in it as well. It was great. I got to do a scene with Betsy Slade. It was a great cast. I loved doing it. Peter was a great director. I loved all the stuff he did. He was very successful. There it is, yeah.
Yeah, he went on to do Outland and 2010, a lot of great classics.
Yeah, fun stuff.
So how many scenes are you in this film?
Maybe 3 or 4. I don't remember. Maybe 3.
So you had some good screen time.
Yeah, there was one scene when I'm dancing with Betsy Slade at a party, and I wanted to get rid of her. I didn't want to dance with her, so I'm waving a $5 bill behind her head for someone to take the $5 and dance with her. Why? I don't know. They did that, but whatever the director tells you to do, you do.
So following Our Time, I guess, is when the life-changing moment happened. You got a call from your agent, and basically what they just said to you is Filmation would like to see you. And that's it, right?
That's pretty much it. She called me and said, Filmation wants to talk to you about doing a Saturday morning TV show called Shazam. Would you be interested? It's Saturday morning TV. It's not prime time. I said, of course. I'm an actor. It's work. So I went out to Filmation Studios. I walked in a room. There was Lou Scheimer, Norm Prescott, and Les Tremayne sitting there. And I almost flipped out. Talk about legend. I said, oh my gosh, Les Tremayne. So I talked to Lou and Norm, and they said, we want you to play Billy Batson. I didn't even audition. Same thing. You don't have to audition back then. Would you play Billy Batson? I said, sure, I will. So that was the beginning of the career again. And I love doing it. And because of the teen magazines now, the demographics on Shazam were outrageous. The normal demographics for Saturday morning TV are like 5 to 12 or something like that or whatever. But because of the teen magazines, they were like 5 to 20. So there's an amazing amount of people watching the show now. Plus, it was so much fun doing it. And again, the magazines now were going crazy. I was all the front covers,
Right.
centerfolds, everything. Other magazines, Bravo did it again, ran me again, and
If you thought 71 to 74 was crazy,
yeah,
these next 2 years will be even more crazier. I have a whole bunch of questions I want to ask you about the show that I think
Okay.
haven't been asked. You haven't been asked before because I didn't want to ask you the same. What was it like wearing that red shirt with the yellow, neckline? But anyway, that's not the same shirt, is it?
this is not.
Oh, okay.
The shirt in the picture is a little wider collar, but that one's a little faded out because we shot all, like you said earlier, everything was on location. So I think there were 12 different shirts, but that one was all faded out from the sun. Because there were times we shot episodes of Shazam, it was 110 degrees outside. So
I was going to ask you, one of my first questions is a different question, basically different than what I think you'd be asked. And I'm going to talk to you about the physical nature of the show. Every episode, you're either running up a mountain or you're driving a dune buggy or a motorcycle, or Captain Marvel is stopping a plane or keeping a car in a junkyard from falling. Explain how physical each episode was.
very physical. We both had stuntmen, our doubles, but some of the stuff we did ourselves. But it was a good workout, obviously. It was a lot of fun. I liked it. I liked doing my own stunts, but I couldn't do too many because if I got injured, there'd be a problem with shooting. So, I couldn't do too much stuff. They cut you back.
But you had to keep in shape. I would think you, Jackson, would have to, either lift weights or go to the gym or do something, wouldn't you?
Exactly. I worked out all the time. I did keep in shape. I had to. Yeah.
Another question I'm going to talk to you is about the great Les Tremaine, who played Mentor.
Yeah.
And here he is. Hold on. Now, he
Yeah.
was a great veteran actor.
He was.
When you did the show together, did he ever give you pointers or how to approach different emotions in each scene, or did he just back off and let you do what you wanted to do?
Both. He was a legend, and I listened to it. I love working with legends because you learn so much from them. So he did give me advice from time to time. Also, let me do whatever I wanted to do. We had a great relationship together. We worked so well together. Every scene we did, we clicked. He became a good friend of mine. I loved Les. He was one of the nicest actors I've ever worked with in my entire life. One of the most humble actors, too, considering, his resume, what he did all his life. But I miss him. I loved him. He was great. Even after the show, we were friends for years. He was a great, wonderful, wonderful guy.
Did he embrace the mentor role, or did he look at it as just kiddie fare kind of thing?
No, he embraced it. He was really good. He embraced it.
So would you talk about that, or you kind of say, this is okay for you, but I'm getting up there in years? Or he just said, isn't this fantastic? We're enjoying it.
Yes.
So it seems like it was positive.
He was positive. It was positive. He was very professional. He was old school. He loved it. He did a great job.
Cool.
Yeah.
No, I'm a big fan of his. I loved some episodes. You notice his hair got a little long. He hadn't been to the barber.
Yeah, exactly.
You'd be outside, his long white hair would be in the wind.
Yeah.
And in other episodes, you could tell he did get it cut. But anyway, that's because I'm just a perfectionist. I watch every episode, and growing up, and I rewatched them for this interview. So I left out hundreds of questions, and I narrowed it down to the ones that I put down. Mm-hmm. So let's move on to the actual show itself. You did 3 seasons. I call them morality plays. I mean, they were almost biblical. Yeah. They dealt with kids and adults who were experiencing conflict. It was kind of like, this is kind of a weird analogy. Remember the show Insight?
Yes.
It was made by the church and a pastor. It was kind of like a Twilight Zone with a religious aspect to it. Mm-hmm. And I kind of thought the morality was there. You dealt with things like don't smoke cigarettes, don't steal money from a cash register, or else there'll be consequences. So I was going to ask you, do you think that was part of the show's appeal, that it showed a problem or a conflict, and then by the end of it, it was solved, or people came to terms with what they did?
Yes, every show had a great moral value to it. And even to this day, when I do Comic-Cons, every time I do a Comic-Con, I have dozens of people that will tell me, sometimes a lot more than that, tell me how meaningful the show was to them when they were children. A lot of them tell me horrible, sad stories. I was abused. My parents were alcoholics. I was beaten up. I was picked on all the time. I was bullied. But your show, because it had great moral values, kept me alive, kept me happy. It was my every Saturday morning. I waited for it. A lot of them tell me literally sometimes the show, I was considering killing myself because I was so abused, but your show kept me in the right mode and everything. And it's heartwarming when I hear stories like that. So we need more of that nowadays.
Yeah, we don't have enough of that.
That's right.
That's why I'm so glad it's out on DVD, which we'll talk about a little bit later.
Yeah.
Then I have another question for you that's on basically on the other end of the spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
As I said, these are questions I don't think you've gotten before because that's what I pride myself on. Do you feel in any way that perhaps Billy relied on Captain Marvel too much in a sense that, I mean, he had the strength to stop a bad guy or a speeding car. I mean, it was obviously easier for him than a mortal Billy, but do you think maybe, I mean, I think there was one episode or two where you kind of handled things, but do you think the show maybe relied too much on his brawn and strength?
Possibly. There were a couple episodes I didn't say Shazam. I handled it myself. But just the fact that it was a superhero movie, a superhero TV show, excuse me, I had to say Shazam and turn to Captain Marvel. So I knew I had that ability to do that, and it was great. Kept me confident in the fact that I could do this, I can handle things. All I had to do was say Shazam, and I can turn into Captain Marvel and handle it myself through the Captain.
Yeah, he's your alter ego or your adult self.
Yes.
Which I don't think was ever, I mean, I think you'd have to be a fan of the original comic book where Billy goes into the cave and he's shown like kind of like these 10 commandments of right and wrong, and then if he wears says Shazam, he becomes this positive superhero. And then I think all of that meeting the 1970s kind of style. I mean, they had to make it so the kids enjoyed it. They didn't want to wrap it up in too much hokey pokey, I guess, huh?
Yeah, exactly right, Jay. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you another quick question, getting off the subject of that, completely different. It's kind of a fun question. You and Mentor would travel the highways and the byways of the land in an RV or a motor home or whatever you want to call it. And my question is, the way it was shot made it look like you were going from from city to city or state to state, but kind of in the back of our minds, or maybe just me because I'm a researcher, it all looked like you were in Southern California, you were up Topanga Canyon, or you were near the Paramount Ranch. But did the producers, was it their intention to make it that you went maybe to a new state, maybe to Arizona or somewhere else for each episode?
Well, they wanted people to believe we were traveling all over the country, yes, but everything was shot in Southern California, and like I said earlier, on location, everywhere.
Do you think that was conveyed that you were actually, do you think maybe that might have been missed, or you think that it was actually because the way you shot it? Because you actually do use the same mountainous road on multiple episodes.
Yeah, or very similar looking ones, for sure.
Right.
Like right there, yeah, exactly.
Well, maybe that's just me because I grew up here. I'm like, oh, they're over Topanga Canyon again?
We even shot out of Vasquez Rocks. We shot all over the place.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, everywhere. We were on location every single day. I would get up at 4:30 in the morning because I had sometimes an hour and a half drive to get to location. I had to be on location at 6. So they were all over the place.
Speaking of locations, it's a great segue. Walk us through an average day on location. What it was like who picked you up, or were you driven to the set? And when did the production crew and the grips all arrive? And did you have Star Wagons back then, or did you have your own trailer? So walk us through a complete day on the set.
We did have Star Wagons, but we also hung out in the RV most of the time during the day. That's where we changed our clothes, but there were Star Wagons as well. But again, I would drive to work every day, just like the crew members did. I never got driven to work. I would always drive to work. And we would shoot normally from sunrise to sunset because it was during the summer. So sometimes we get on the set at 6 and start working. You never worked immediately. It was always hurry up and wait, as you know. You're in the business. Hurry up and wait. So we get on the set at 6. Sometimes you wouldn't start working until 9. Sometimes you work till 8 o'clock at night. And sometimes it was so hot. There was one time Les and I were shooting a scene inside the RV.
Mm-hmm.
It was about 110 degrees outside, and they had a bunch of 9 lights outside shooting through the windshield. So it was even hotter inside the motorhome now, and the 9 lights were lighting up the windshield. So all of a sudden, during our scene, the windshield cracked open from the heat. So in character, because Les had a great sense of humor, and he would do things that were on the blooper reel, which got lost. Les, when the windshield cracked, Les looked over at me and said, "Billy, what the F was that?" I said, "I don't know, Mentor, but it sure scared the S out of me." So,
And was tape rolling?
tape was rolling, and then all of a sudden you heard, "Cut! It's a kid's show. You guys can't do that." And Les and I started laughing so hard we were crying.
I would kill to get a hold of that bloop reel, that blooper
Really,
reel.
no one knows what happened to it. It vanished, but everybody wanted to see stuff like that.
But you did shoot very fast. I mean, would you complete an episode in a couple days?
Yeah, in about 2.5 days, we completed an episode. We did 2 episodes in a 5-day period. So we shot fast and hard. Yeah. I mean, you were working from, on the set at 6 in the morning and working until 8 o'clock at night. So definitely. 2.5 days, we shot an episode.
Now, another question you'll have to rack your memory for. You had so many guest stars come on the show. Ones who went on to become other bigger stars, and others who just were always a star, even when they started. So I'm going to throw some names at you, like Andrew Stevens.
Yes.
And Danny Bonaducci and Pam Ferdin.
Yep.
And tell us about what you remember about some of these guest stars.
We had some amazing guest stars. Like I said, Pamela and Ferdin was great. Danny was great. We had some other ones, too, amazing. We had Jackie Earl Haley did an episode. Great little actor back then.
And he had just done Bad News Bears, or was this prior?
I don't know if it was prior or not, but he was great in Bad News Bears. I think it was prior to Bad News Bears. Butch Patrick was also on an episode.
He was.
Yeah. Lisa Eilbacher did an episode. She was in Beverly Hills Cop.
I think John Ritter's wife before they got married. I forgot her name.
Yeah, she did.
The one where they take the pictures.
Yes. We also had, believe it or not, Maury Wills.
Of course. I was going to talk to you about that episode.
He did an episode. And one of my favorite character actors who did an episode was Dabbs Greer.
Dabbs Greer.
Yeah. I loved it when I got on the set every morning. I say, who's going to be on today? I saw Dabbs Greer, and he was great.
That's awesome.
Was wonderful. Yeah.
Let me ask you another question. And I'm sure it's a yes, but I'd still like to hear it from the horse's mouth. Were you a fan of the crossover episodes when ISIS came on Shazam, or vice versa?
I was. I enjoyed it. I liked work. I did, I think, one episode with Joanna Cameron. Just one, I think. Maybe 2. The Captain Marvels got to do a couple more with her, because normally I would say Shazam turned into Captain Marvel, then they'd be with Joanna. Yeah, but it was fun working with her.
So I forgot. I thought when Captain Marvel went, you went too, but that's not necessarily the case.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. So I think he would just appear. How can I help you, Diana? Okay.
Yeah.
And let me ask you another quick question while we're on the subject of this. Did you like the idea of when Shazam combined with ISIS and became the Shazam ISIS Hour, or would you have preferred Shazam staying as its own standalone show?
I liked it as a standalone show first. It was fantastic. But I accepted the fact we started working with ISIS and became the Shazam ISIS Hour. I had no problem with that at all.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, it didn't. I had no ego back then. I was so humble. I'm still that way. But I had no issue with that at all. Did it take away a little bit of our popularity? Not really. It was fine.
No, I think she was a nice-looking actress, so I'm sure maybe a little bit in the ratings, you had a little bit more of a male or teenage audience.
Yes.
I loved watching her. Almighty ISIS, ISIS, ISIS. I actually personally would have preferred you to have separate shows myself. It would have been nice. You could follow each other. You would obviously be the lead. I mean, that goes without saying. But I think it would have been better that way, just to have your own show. And then, but you know how TV worked. They want to combine everything and save money, save time, stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Another quick question. I think you did touch on this on a previous interview, but maybe some of our fans of the show don't know. In the 3 seasons that you drove around in the Shazam RV, how hot did it get in there? Because you weren't allowed to put on the AC because it would interfere with the dialogue. So,
That's
I
right.
mean, was it boiling in there?
Yeah, like the day I said the windshield cracked. It was hot. It got hot in there all the time. And we couldn't put the AC on because you had a sound man. When Les and I were doing our scenes in the RV, you had a sound man lying on the floor between us with a microphone going back and forth between us. So couldn't put the AC on.
Oh, you couldn't because you have to measure sound for each
Exactly.
shot. You couldn't just put it on and, okay, let's roll, because I know how they do sound. They do sound check, and they has to measure levels.
Exactly
so
right.
it wouldn't make sense putting on the. So that must have been a hot 3 years in that RV.
It was. Again, we shot all over the desert.
Now, did they fan? How did they fan you so you didn't show the dripping sweat in between takes? Or they just pat you down?
They didn't. We just sweated,
Oh, they made it part of the show. You guys are driving all over the place.
Yeah.
You'd naturally be sweating. Okay, here's another question for you. Is there an episode or a topic or a direction you wish the show would have covered, or are you completely satisfied with the 28 different subject matters that were covered, or were tackled, and not too much else could have been addressed? Was there anything you think you could have covered?
I don't think so. I think they did a great job, and they did. There's so much variety and so many different things they covered, especially with the moral values. They across the table, they did a great job. So I don't think they missed anything. Had I analyzed it, maybe I would have found something, but I didn't. I just did what they asked me to do, and whatever the script was, was fine.
Well, I think, yeah, you're absolutely right. Cheating, lying, lack of self-esteem, bullying was covered, I think, multiple times. Being called a chicken, like we'll be talking about. And I have a segment coming up in a second where I'm going to give you my top 10 favorite episodes. And if you can remember, you can tell me what you thought about them. I think most of the episodes, although different in nature, I think had the same theme. I think for teenagers or young adults, they were either, as I said, goaded or bullied into doing something they really didn't want to do. And you notice they kind of all ignore Billy's advice at the beginning. Billy, you and Mentor, just get back in your RV and leave us alone. And but eventually, after being saved or rescued by Captain Marvel, they kind of see the error in their ways, and they change their way of thinking. Do you see that, or do you think it was a little deeper than that?
I see it. I think it was fine. Yeah.
No, was that, you think, Lou Scheimer and Norm Prescott, you think that was their whole point? Start with a conflict, have the initial antagonist, protagonist ignore the dangers, and at the end, let it all come full circle with the help of Captain Marvel.
I think so. I think Lou and Norm did that, yes. We also had a child psychologist on the set most of the time.
Oh, okay.
Too, to make sure things were done properly.
That makes sense. I forgot to ask you what you thought about my Elder's beach towel.
I like it.
I hung it here especially for the show.
I like it a lot. It
cool.
Makes me smile.
Awesome,
yeah.
Awesome. Now we're going to, just for a second, briefly touch on it without going into detail and without choosing sides. What was your take on, after the third episode or second episode of season 2, Jackson Bostwick, who played Captain Marvel, was replaced with John Davey? Right. What was I going to ask you about that? Yeah, in the middle of season 2, did that change things? Was it kind of a shock? What was your take on that?
Well, to begin with, I went along with whatever the executive producers said, whatever production I did, whether it was a movie, TV show, or a series. Executive producers make a decision. That's the way it is. You can't dispute it. So there were a couple of stories what happened with Jackson. One was he got injured doing a stunt, and he went to the doctor or a nurse, and he didn't show up, whatever, and because he was hurt. But then the studio...
This wasn't where he got hurt. I'm just showing him in action.
Yeah. I also heard another rumor was that he asked for more money, and the executive producer said no. So I still don't know the true story. But I remember and I don't remember which episode it was, but I remember the stunt he did. He did get hurt. He flew through the air, landed on some boxes, which he did quite often, corrugated boxes to absorb the impact, and he got hurt. So they made it sound like he wanted more money. So whatever the case may be, when someone is let go from a series, there's always someone waiting in the wings, as you know. So John told me the story. Basically, he was sitting at home with his son, got a phone call from his agent and said, Filmation wants you to play Captain Marvel. So he had to basically get in his car and drive out to location the next day. He walked on the set, and he had to put on a costume and start doing it. So Les and I accepted him immediately, because that's the way it was. That's what the producers said. It was a little difficult at first to understand. We went from one Captain Marvel to another, but they made a decision. It is what it is. John did a good job.
He did.
I'm still good friends with John. I like him a lot. So, it is what it is. You got to accept the fact that production company or executive producers make a decision. Whether it was right or not, I don't know, because, again, I heard two different stories, like my Room 222 thing and Little People, two different stories. I don't know what happened.
No, things happen.
Yeah, they do, yeah.
I mean, just like in Bewitched, remember? Dick York turned into Dick Sargent.
Yeah, two Darrens.
Just like that.
Exactly right. I remember that well, yeah.
It even happened in a couple of shows, modern day shows. Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, I think Aunt Viv changed actors or actresses. So it happens all the time. People are replaced.
Yep.
And the reason behind it maybe isn't for the ears of the fans, but in today's social media, there's always opinions and proclamations of what happened, but it's all conjecture.
I was replaced in Room 222. I was replaced in Little People. It's the way it is.
You're right. But no, John did a great job. And it is great to see that you guys, we'll talk about in a second, are still friends. Okay, so now I'm going to talk to you about some of my opinion about the show, and you tell me if you agree. I think some of the best scenes of the series aren't really the conflicts that happen or when Captain Marvel comes and saves the day. I think the best scenes, Michael, are at the beginning of every episode when you and Mentor are kind of setting up the show. You're either changing a tire and you hurt your thumb, or you're coming out of a grocery market with a bag of groceries, or you're fishing. I think those, because it's so, my favorite one is you're playing checkers at the beach.
Yes.
And he does the old dipsy doodle where he takes all your checkers, and you say, well, that's $7 million you owe me. You go, no, it isn't. It's $6 million. I think those, the camaraderie, I think those funny kind of moments before the show actually gets started are my favorite. What do you think?
I loved working with Les, so I agree with you. Like I said, he was the nicest actor I've ever worked with in my entire life, and I've worked with some big legends going back to the late 60s. But I loved every scene I did with him.
Were those inserted? Were those in the original script? It seemed a little ad-libbed a little bit.
We did a little ad-libbing occasionally from time to time. He was just amazing. He was such a wonderful guy. He really was.
Because I just thought those scenes are so funny, and they're just shows that kind of that either fatherly or favorite uncle kind of thing. Was that how it was supposed to be portrayed?
I think so, yes.
Oh, okay.
Les was like my father figure, too. He really was. I loved him. He was great.
Well, everything I read about him, I think there's not been one bad thing said about him.
Nothing.
Let me ask you another question that I don't think has been asked of you, so I'm proud of this question. In the 3 years the show ran, did it ever occur, because I know they do this nowadays, maybe this was before you would do this with a young star of a show, but did it ever occur to Norm or Lou to let you perhaps direct an episode or maybe a sequence or two? I mean, after all, you were the star of the show.
It was never brought up. It was never discussed. And I get that question quite often from people.
Well, there goes that theory. I always thought, because it would be nice if you kind of go back and you look at the 28 or so episodes. It was directed by Michael Gray. That would have been kind of cool, huh?
I would have loved it. And by the way, the people that bring it up to me are people in the business. Like
I see. Okay, so.
It's not just fans, people in the business that I know, directors, producers, they ask me, why don't you direct one? Yeah.
Okay. So now here comes where I told you I was going to bring up my top 10. This is just subjective to me, or top 11 actually. And you give me your thoughts on it. If you do, you could just say pass, like on the show Password. Or if you have a particular memory on that show. Okay, you ready?
Sure. Again,
these are not in any particular order.
All right.
Okay, let's start with, this is a good one. Where get my notes, a racist who doesn't like Jewish people is attacked by a mountain lion, until Captain Marvel saves the day, and you wear a yarmulke in the titled Bitter Herbs.
Yes, I remember that one. Yeah.
Tell us about that.
It was fun. I liked it. Yeah.
It was the first time. It was actually
well.
You took a religion because it was. I don't know if it would have been controversial at the time, but you wore the yarmulkes. You heard a couple Jewish prayers in it.
Right.
I think Mentor wears a yarmulke too, if I'm not mistaken.
I think so, and I think the gentleman who played the rabbi in that too was a doctor as well, I believe.
So just a fun episode.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was.
That's
fun,
all.
yeah.
Just what you remember about it. Okay. Another favorite of mine. And we're going to see if I can find it here. I've got all these photos lined up, and so I'm just going to go with what appears first.
Okay.
How about when Captain Marvel robs what does he rob? A gasoline station or a he almost like robs a 7-Eleven or something like that.
Something like that, yeah. I forgot.
Somebody who wears a mask posing as him, and they figure while he's in jail, they'll keep robbing convenience stores.
That's right.
What do you remember about that episode?
I just remember it was fun seeing John behind bars.
Oh, it was a gas station.
Yeah.
Oh, he was. You know what? Eventually, doesn't he kind of like bend him to get out or something?
He does, yeah. Exactly right. Which he could do anytime he wanted to do.
Right.
Yeah.
So that was number, as I said, no particular order, but my top 11 episodes that I remember watching. Okay, well, I'm going to save the last one for last. Let's go on this one where a boy who wants the love of his dad because he thinks that his dad loves his older brother more than him on Winning.
Ah, yeah.
That was kind of a poignant episode, showing that a dad loves his sons equally.
Yeah, that was a fun episode too. Yeah.
Okay, so then let's move on to another one, one of my top 10 favorite Shazam episodes, and it was called The Boy Who Said No. Mm-hmm. And this one was about Mentor is beaten over the head. That's kind of violent. And he's robbed, and the culprit tries to escape via a helicopter.
Yes.
So how did Les take being hit over the head?
Les took everything well, but I felt bad for him. I really did. He did everything.
I did too. It was like, whoa, don't hit Mentor.
Yeah.
So that was a fun episode. Okay, let's move on to Jay's top 11 Shazam episodes. Well, of course, it would have to be, one of them is the Doom Buggy.
Yeah.
Of course, you must remember something about this one.
I do. I think that might have been the episode. Excuse me. I think that might have been the episode where
you get lost in the desert.
True, but there was an episode too, and I think that was it, where the driver, had to shoot off a flare gun to get attention, and if I'm not mistaken, the flare went up the side of a hill and started a brush fire.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
that could be it. But this
guy's
like. He's a wannabe mechanic, but he really can't help you. He kind of, under pressure, he panics, and you're out in the desert without any water.
Right, exactly.
Just like you are now.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. Right here, water.
There it is. Okay. Let's go to another one of my favorite episodes. This kind of, because I'm just remembering when I saw this as a kid myself. It's the one where that guy tries to get away from the gang he's involved in. He keeps climbing higher and higher at this oil refinery till he gets, he's too tall and he needs to be rescued. This was called The Gang's All Here.
Yes, I remember that one. Yeah.
What do you remember about it? Anything in particular?
I remember him climbing, like you said.
Right, he was climbing on each bar, and I don't understand why if he was trying to get away, or I was like, you're going too high, man. You're not going to get.
But yeah, I know. I was just I was amazed watching him climb up that thing. Yeah.
Well, it's once again about peer pressure, being bullied, about trying to fit in with a gang and when you really don't want to. That's what all of these morality tales were about.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay, let's go to another favorite of mine. This was with the guy who earlier in his career, his name escapes me. I should have written it down. He was one of the stars of The Curiosity Shop on ABC. This is called The Joyriders. I think this could have been the first episode.
It was one of the first, that's for sure. Yeah, I remember that.
I forget if it's Billy Jacoby or Scott Jacoby, who's the leader of this little punk gang of kids who like to steal cars.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Are you chicken? You're chicken. And he keeps saying, the guy there in the picture, I'm not chicken. Don't call me chicken.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, where was this Ralph's? Do you remember?
Somewhere in the valley. I don't remember where. I know it was in the valley. Yeah. Yeah.
So let's move on with Jay's top 10 or top 11 Shazam. I hope you don't mind me showing these, Mike.
Not at all. I'm enjoying it.
Okay.
Yeah.
This one was with Pamela Fernan. We talked about it earlier. Her aunt has willed that her horse be put down, but Pam, who's the new owner, doesn't want it to be killed. And you and Mentor join a group of protesters with signs that say the title of this one, Thou Shalt Not Kill. Mm-hmm. What do you remember about this episode?
Well, I loved it. It was such an emotional episode. Plus, Pamela was just an amazing actress. She had done so much stuff before and after Shazam.
Right, voice of Lucy for the Peanuts.
Oh yeah, she'd done so much stuff. Yeah.
Oh, she did. She was on almost every TV show you could imagine.
Literally, yeah.
At the time.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, let's move on to Jay's top 11 Shazam episodes. I'm saving the last two for last. This one is the one with Murray Wills, where a violinist.
Yeah.
He ends up in a missile testing range. Mm-hmm. And this has one of the greatest, I think, moral tags at the end with you and Murray. You have to tell us a story about that.
Unfortunately, I don't remember.
It seems like you guys were very friendly to each other.
We were, yeah.
Do you remember what diamond or what park that was shot at?
I don't. You were talking 45 or 46 years ago. I don't remember, but
is that all?
That's all. But I remember when I saw Maury Wills in this too. It just blew me away. Like, why Maury Wills? Wow.
He was retired. I think a couple years from the Dodgers.
Yes.
But just seeing him there was very cool. And this actor, I don't know if you remember, he was in room 222.
Yeah, he was. I don't remember his name, but he was in 222. Yeah. Yep.
Okay, I got two more episodes to share with you. These are Jay's top favorites. Now, this actor, I don't think gets enough credit for playing a bad guy. I remember watching this, wow, I wouldn't want to meet him in a dark alley. I think Ron Sobel played a guy named Brock in The Lure of the Lost, where he plays a drug dealer trying to get kids to carry for him. Mm-hmm. And this was such a powerful episode, they made it a two-parter.
Yes.
There he is, Ron Sobel.
Ron was a great actor, too. He did a lot of work. He was very talented. Yeah.
I remember, because of the name Brock, if I ever met someone named Brock, I didn't like them.
Yeah, exactly.
Because of that. Fans might recognize him. He's in that episode, I can't remember. I was a big Star Trek fan, where they redid the battle of the OK Corral. And
he was in that,
Yeah, so I think Kirk and McCoy and Scotty had to take on the Earp brothers, and he was one of them.
We're very lucky. We had some great guest stars in that show. We really did.
Yeah. But I just remember how seedy Ron was in this role.
Yes, he was.
Now, of course, I don't even have to tell you. Of course, I saved the best for last. And I know you're going to tell me this episode you do remember, because I think it is your personal favorite as well, in Little Boy Lost.
I knew you were going to say that. Yes, it was. It was a great episode. That's when I didn't have to say Shazam. I saved the kid myself. Yeah, pulled him out of the ocean.
You ever run into this guy? He's probably my age now or something.
He probably is, yes.
Talk about it. Where are they now? Where's the little boy who was lost, right?
Yeah, that was a great episode. He was a great little kid. The dog was adorable. It was a lot of fun. It was a great episode. It really was. I liked it.
I remember just rooting for him to get out. It had probably one of the biggest suspenseful episodes.
I think so. Yeah, it was great. Yeah.
So great episode, Little Boy Lost. That was my top 11 of all time.
That was
Shazam
my favorite
episodes.
episode too. People tell all the time. I tell people, Little Boy Lost was my favorite episode.
And I'm sure it's a lot of people's too.
Yeah.
Okay, now we have a segment of the podcast where I call "What the Heck."
Okay.
And it's kind of in jest. Obviously, it's in jest, and you may not even know the answers. So just if you don't know or think of something funny, feel free.
All right.
5 questions about Shazam that make me say, "What the heck?" What is that ovular contraption in the RV with the multicolored buttons called that allows the elders to contact you?
It was called a brazier.
Wow, when was that ever mentioned?
I don't know if it was or not, but it's called a brazier, yes.
A brazier.
Yes, not a brazier, a brazier.
Oh, Billy, here they are again. Follow-up question, how come Mentor always heard it first, right?
Yeah, why? I don't know, but he did, yes.
Okay.
Billy,
next
the mentors
question.
are calling you, yes.
Right, the elders are on the phone.
Yes.
On 5 questions, what the heck? Why is it that every time the elders request your presence to explain your next ordeal, it's just you standing there, kind of like you're in the hologram, you're in the hallucination. But when you come out of it, Mentor always seems to know what they were talking about. Like, Mentor, what do they mean by that? Well, Billy, he wasn't there. How does Mentor know?
Good question. I wondered that myself. But he knew everything the elders were telling me. And yes, everything. Literally.
I have a Chris Nolan answer. Mentor is one of the elders.
Yeah, it's a good possibility.
How about that? Huh?
Yeah, why not? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's question number 3 of what the heck regarding Shazam. This has been asked, I'm sure, of you, and maybe you'll have an answer. How come nobody realizes Billy is Captain Marvel when the Captain Marvel lightning bolt is seen as clear as day on the front of the RV? No one puts 2 and 2 together.
Yeah, I hear a lot of jokes about that. You know, gee, I wonder who's in that RV. Captain Marvel.
And it's right there.
Exactly.
You can't make the bolt any more clearer.
That's right.
You know, anyway, okay. Question number 3 of what the heck regarding Shazam. I like Jackson Bostwick as Captain Marvel, but since he's actually Billy, or the older version of you, as a more mature superhero, why does Captain Marvel have a really bad Southern drawl when Billy doesn't? Well, hi, everybody, I'm Captain Marvel. I'm like, wait a minute.
Interesting point you brought up. You obviously paid attention. That's interesting.
Big time. Maybe too much attention while I was having my Fruit Loops. But I always thought that. And of course, when John came along, he sounded more like you.
Yeah, well, John was from the West Coast and Jackson's from the Southeast.
And you know, well, remember next time, just don't light that forest fire. I'm like, huh? Okay, finally, on what the heck, 5 questions regarding Shazam. Why is Mentor called Mentor? I mean, he is your mentor as an occupation, but why doesn't he have a real first name like Irv or Stanley?
Well, you can call him Les if you want to.
No, but you know what I mean. I mean, he's your mentor, but I get that. Okay, mentor John, mentor Steve, mentor Irving. Why is he just called, why is Mentor not only your mentor, but that's his name?
That's his name. Why didn't he have a real first name? I don't know, but that's his name.
There we go. Those are my 5 what the hecks.
All right. I like him.
Okay. We asked you what your favorite episode was, Little Boy Lost. Here's something if you want to, you know, you don't have to answer. What is the episode that you like the least or enjoy? Maybe you'd enjoy filming it or maybe you didn't like the whole topic.
Good question. I have no answer for that. I'll pass on that one. I have no
Okay.
answer.
No, you're allowed.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Jay.
No worries. Okay. Now we're going to get to, we finished with our Shazam, our tribute to the show. And now we did a tribute to your early career and your teen idoldom. Now we'll talk a little bit, I guess, after post Shazam. Okay. You mentioned in other interviews that after Shazam, it was extremely difficult to find work for decades, to be honest with you, which I think is a shame. Your success on Shazam was now a deterrent due to Hollywood's, you know, mindset. They undermine talented actors by thinking that they can only be known for one role. Can you expound on how that kind of was disappointing to you, or how that unfair mindset was to you?
Yeah, it was difficult. You think you do one TV series, you're taken out of it. You do another TV series, you think you got to continue working. Well, I would go on auditions all the time after Shazam, and almost every single time, whether it was I was looking for to play a part as a psychopathic killer or whatever else it was, every single time I got a response from the director or the producer, whatever it was, we can't cast you in this. You're Billy Batson from Shazam. And it got to the point where I used to get so upset. I said, I'm not Billy Batson. I'm an actor who played Billy Batson. You're in the business. Why don't you know that? I'm not Billy Batson. They said, we just can't cast you. So it got to the point where I finally gave it up. I had to get out of the business because I had to work.
Right. I was
going
to mention, I was going to lead you to my next question, was that, okay, so obviously you became disillusioned with the business. I would too. I mean, Teen Idol, star of Shazam, guest starring on popular TV shows, and then, but that's the nature of this messed up business. You know, you don't know what to expect. Sometimes it does chew people up and spit them out, and you never know if you're gonna. You know, it's like a spinning of the wheel. It's like, oh, cool, I'll go on to my next series, and it just. I think we talked before the show, like maybe Bob Denver had with Gilligan. You know,
yeah.
or people like that. It's just so unfair when obviously you're an actor, you can do other roles. It's not like Leonard Nimoy was a Vulcan in real life. I mean, he went on to do Mission Impossible and other TV movies and stuff. Yeah. Anyway, so you got out of the business for a while, married a great lady, Stacy, and you opened a flower shop in West Hollywood.
We did. I had a bunch of other jobs before that, but actually one of the jobs I had too was construction, working with Davy Jones and the Monkees.
Oh, how cool. Tell me about that for a second.
They were building a little mall in West Hollywood, and I helped them build it. So that's why I became friends with Davy again after I did that show with him back in the 70s. So we opened a flower shop in West Hollywood and then moved it to Beverly Hills. We had a lot of celebrity clients. We did it for about 10 or 12 years, I think. But it was really hard work. I would get up sometimes in the morning. I'd go to sleep at 10 o'clock at night and get up at 1 o'clock in the morning to go down to the flower market and work from 1 o'clock in the morning, get back to the flower shop and work till 6 o'clock at night. But we had some great celebrity clients. So some of them I became friends with, and some of them were my favorites.
Were you
good?
Go ahead.
Oh, we became good friends with two of our favorite clients, Sharon and Ozzy Osbourne.
Oh, Ozzy!
Loved them both. They were so great. They were
what
so
was
nice
the flower, Sharon?
Yeah, they were great. We became good friends with them. They invited us to the house a lot. They invited us to parties. When I got remarried, we went to them.
I was going to ask you, were you content with that for a while? I mean, you said it was hard work, but was it easier? I mean, you were the boss. You didn't have to answer to anybody. Your wife was working with you. Were you a little bit more content during these years?
It was content. I was content. I was accepting it, but I wanted to be back in the acting business.
Oh, that bug was still with you.
Oh, sure. Once you have it in you, you don't ever give it up. So I did that for quite a few years. Then after that, we got rid of the shop. We closed it up because business was getting bad. And then I went into other jobs. I was selling retail men's clothing for quite a few years as well. But getting back
don't
to
give
the
away
business
too much.
again, okay,
I was going to get to that.
Yeah, I'll talk about the resurgence in a second.
In 1 second, yes.
Yeah.
So you did construction, right?
Yes.
You mentioned, and so then let me ask you this. Let's just a quick detour back to Shazam for a final question. Mm-hmm. How ecstatic or elated were you when you found out after 40 years of basically disappearing from television? I mean, outside of an occasional, showing here and there on a retro channel, that Warner Archives put out the complete series in 2012. Were you notified of that, or were you just as surprised as anybody else?
Well, that's sort of started my career up again a little bit right now because I'm doing a few things here and there. But what happened was in 2012, I got a phone call. This is from Warner Brothers, where we just bought the rights to Shazam, and we're going to promote the sale of the DVD down at San Diego Comic-Con. Would you come down and do a panel with us? There it is. I said, sure. So I went down to San Diego Comic-Con with one of my friends, Gary Mariano. He was the moderator, and we talked, there must have been 1,000 people in the room, too. It was a pretty big panel. So we promoted it and started the resurgence. So it was my first Comic-Con. And then it kept growing after that. And you can jump in if you want, or I'll just continue.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say, then the Comic-Cons started. There was the Beverly Garland, or at least in Southern California. I know they have other ones in New Jersey and Philadelphia and Chicago, but since you're here in Southern Cal, we'll just talk about those. There was the Hollywood Collector Show.
Yes.
And That actually was one of the first, where you would go and sit in a big auditorium with other retro stars like yourself, and you'd have autographs and photos and maybe DVDs. And it was a chance to meet the fans and to talk to fans.
That's
and
correct.
to
Yeah.
hear their stories. And this is where most of them would tell you how much you helped them through difficult times, or it was my favorite show. And the smiles on their face, either to take a picture with you or just to shake your hand. They didn't really have much of these in the 60s. And well, they had the Star Trek conventions here and there. But I don't think it took off until the late 80s, early 90s with these autograph shows in Southern California. But then I think, in the last 10, 15 years, it's turned into a whole new, I guess, money machine called the Comic-Cons.
Yes.
Where, whether it's in San Diego or Anaheim or all over the country, where now the studios are involved.
Yes.
And they reserve a table with all the big stars that you would never thought you'd see.
That's
so
right.
tell us how you fit into that.
Well, the one I did in San Diego, I didn't sit at a table. I just did the panel with Warner Brothers.
Okay, panels too.
Yeah, but the collectible show, the Hollywood Collectible Show, was my first real one where I sat down at a table signing autographs and meeting fans. That was the beginning of it. And then when, I'm trying to think, the Comic-Cons, I was doing, like the car shows I said, I was doing back almost every single month back during when Shazam was on. That was like Comic-Cons back then. You sit at a table signing autographs, meeting people. And back then I got to work with people like Adam West, Burt Ward, all the guys from Welcome Back, Kotter. Like I said, Dick Clark earlier.
So you were a veteran of these kind of autograph shows.
Yeah, because back then the car shows, the auto shows were basically the same idea. I got to work with all these celebrities and meet fans all over the place. And then you'd be lining up at your table because your show was current. Shazam was current, so people lining up, hundreds of people lining up to meet you. So now I'm enjoying it again. And now there's more resurgence going on because DC Universe redid Shazam. They did it in HD, and they streamed it, and Warner Brothers put it on Blu-ray in HD. So I went down to WonderCon again with Warner Brothers to promote the sale, this time on Blu-ray, and promote with DVD streaming it. So now the resurgence is building up again. So more Comic-Cons are happening. So I'm enjoying that.
Well, let me ask you then.
I love meeting my fans. It's fun.
Oh, and I told you before the show, it's so nice and refreshing because I've met in my time many, many celebrities, and some just don't take to this retro resurgence. They just want to be left alone, and which is their prerogative. Absolutely. But guys like yourself who are very open to meeting their fans, I think it's wonderful, and you're to be commended to just being that way, because we live in an era now where we can do a show like this or meet at a convention and say a few words and then move on, and then someone behind me will get to talk to you, where I don't think that was possible back in the day. But I want to talk about how that led to, in 2015, you were, I guess, picked to be in a new movie, Surge of Power, with Nichelle Nichols, and you were acting again. So how did that feel?
I liked it. That, again, was like typecasting, because the part I played in the Shazam and the Surge of Power movies, I did 4 of them, I played Willie B, like Billy Batson. He's a reporter. So again, I just did one about 3 weeks ago too, that's not released yet. It's my last one with Surge of Power movie. But there's some great cast members. Lou Ferrigno did one. Linda Blair has done them. They did some great casting for some cameos in these movies. But that was, again, part of, typecasting this time was working again. I was doing something related to Billy Batson, Willie B.
Well, at least the typecasting is in a positive kind of way.
Yes.
So it works like that.
Yeah.
Then let's talk about your series Archer. Tell me about that.
Again, it's a resurgence because of Shazam. Because Archer was a Shazam fan, which I didn't know. My son was watching an episode of Archer one night, and Archer had amnesia, was sitting out by a pool with Lana, and he said to her, "What was the name of that guy who played Billy Batson in Shazam?" He looked at her and he said, "I know, it was Michael Gray." So he told me this. So I contacted Adam Reed, the creator and writer and executive producer of Archer. We talked. He said, would you like to do some episodes? I said, yes. So again, I played TV's Michael Gray in Archer. I did 4 episodes. And the first one, when I come on the stage, Archer's sitting in the audience with some people, and someone says something about he was in Shazam. And Archer said, of course he was in Shazam. And the Brian Keith show as well. So again, typecasting and Archer got me the part.
So it's kind of bittersweet. It's like, gee, thanks, but okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Well, I guess at this point, you can't be too choosy, but I still think that the fact that they want you involved in these things are fantastic. I mean, and it's an inside joke. It's great. It actually is mentioning what you were famous for.
Exactly right. Yeah, yeah.
You know, so tell us as we kind of wind things down. What are you working on now, or what do you see for the future?
Good question. Right now, I'm not sure because this pandemic and now the fact there's a little resurgence going on. I haven't done a Comic-Con since a year ago, March, when I did 2 in a row. I did Grand Rapids Comic-Con, then I did Pensacon, where again I saw Lou Ferrigno. It was fun. So I just got booked for a Comic-Con that's not for 11 months. So I don't know what's going to happen between now and then, but I'm hoping I get more because I like them. Again, I love meeting my fans. I love traveling the country. It's fun. Because if it wasn't for the fans, I wouldn't be where I am. So I appreciate my fans. I love meeting them. So we'll see what happens.
Okay. I wish you nothing but success and everything that you do. And it was an honor to have you here to discuss your whole career. I told you before the show, we're not just talking about Shazam. I want everybody to know that you were a teen idol, that you were a guest star on many TV shows, and then there was life after Shazam too. So
yeah, we went back to when I was a teenager in Florida. Thank you. That was fun.
We did. But, guess what? Beep, bop, boop, bop, beep, bop, beep, bop, boop, bop.
Brazier, yes. Oh, elders, fleet and
elders,
wise, appear before my seeking eyes.
Billy, it's time to end the show.
Mentor, what were they talking about?
Right. Well, where's Mentor? But I want to thank you so much for joining me here on the Retro Time Machine.
Thank you for inviting me. I loved it.
And I want to thank all of you for watching. I'm here every other week with a new chat with a retro star, and sometimes I won't be. I'll be picking a topic and we'll just talk about that. But we have another great guest coming up on the next show, and I'll let you know what that is coming up on Facebook in a few days. So anyway, Michael Gray, my best to you and your wife, and thank you so much for joining me. And here are the elders on my phone. I don't think so. But thank you, everybody, for watching. And remember, if you didn't catch this live, you can catch this archived on Facebook again. So I'm Jay Jennings for the great Michael Gray. We'll see you next time.
Thank you, Jay.
Yes, on the Retro Time Machine podcast. So long, everybody.
Jay, this was like, real quick, this was like doing a talk show in the 70s, like when I did Dinah and stuff. This was reminding me.
How about Merv? Ooh, Michael.
Yeah, this was fun.
All right. Yeah. I'm so glad you enjoyed. I tried to make it as easy as I could for you.
It wasn't like a podcast. It was like a talk show, and I loved it.
Good.
It really was fantastic. I enjoyed it a lot.
I'm so glad, and thanks for coming in the shirt.
Thank you. Pleasure. Appreciate it. No problem. I'm glad I wore it. Yeah.
So once again, everybody, we'll see you next time on the Retro Time Machine podcast.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you, everybody, for watching. All right. Take care.